Hi, I'm JJ. Welcome or welcome back. This video will be my monthly wrap up for January. And for anyone new to this channel, you will see my very eclectic and random taste and see kind of how I fall down different rabbit holes and that affects my reading. So I hope that there's something, at least for some of you here. I did have a very big reading month of a lot of different things. I did a children's book, a couple uh, graphic novels, 3 volumes of a manga, and a couple other books, as well as several audiobooks. So I have a lot to talk about, so I apologize in advance as this video gets quite long. The first book that I read or listened to this month, it was Brigands and Bread Knives by Travis Baldree. And this was book 3 in his series, the first one being Legends and Lattes. It's a cozy fantasy featuring all the same characters and stuff. Of the 3 that I've read of his, this one was the one that I liked the least. The first one was Legends and Lattes, and then they did a sort of a prequel to it, and then this is the sequel to those 3. And I guess it wasn't like it was bad or anything. It's just the first one featured, a bunch of D&D type of characters, ogres and different magical beings and mythical things. And she opens a coffee shop, and then the next one they open a bookshop. So you kind of get the sense of just like this found family, this coziness. And this one was more going out on an adventure. And yes, you do realize, maybe home is not as boring or lackluster as you thought, and maybe you want to go home again. Maybe it's about the people that you meet along the way, and rather than settling down, she needed to find that on her own by adventuring. So there was some themes and stuff that I liked. I just had come to expect a certain thing from his books, and this kind of deviated from that a little bit, so I just didn't like it as much as the others. The next one that I read was on my TBR for a while, and I finally got around to it. Travelers Along the Way. This is a Robin Hood remix. This was by Amina May Safi, and I really enjoyed this. I personally love anything to do with Robin Hood, any kind of remakes, any retellings. I really just enjoy the story. And so for this one, it had a lot of the same elements that you're expecting from Robin Hood. It had this lightheartedness, kind of, found family adventure seeking people who are, fighting the system, and, robbing from the rich, giving to the poor. So that you have this, just this light-hearted do-goodness to it. And although this book takes it in a completely different way, it had all the same beats that you're used to, so it still felt very familiar and enjoyable. And so for this one, it takes place during the Crusades with Saladin and Richard the Lionheart, which is where the original Robin Hood then comes from. But this is from the Islamic side. So you have 2 sisters who are Muslim, and they accidentally start their own merry band of misfits, bandits who essentially are trying to thwart the Queen of Jerusalem, but as well as push back King Richard and his people as they're trying to reclaim and keep Jerusalem. And so there's a lot of hijinks that is fun. But what really gives this story some heart is so you have the beautiful relationship between the two sisters who fight all the time and bicker and just clash, but there's so much love and just loyalty between them. And as they go on their way, they meet a whole bunch of cast of characters. So you actually have a Jewish scientist, a woman, a Mongolian female warrior, a newly minted chaplain for the Knights Templar, and then another Islamic spy type of character, and then the three Muslim characters, the two sisters, and then the spy. They come from the different branches. So you have the Sunni and the Shia featured here, as well as the Christian Templar and the Jewish scientists. So it just feels very inclusive, very like they're lost and trying to find their people, trying to find their way in this world that is being torn apart by continued war and conquest. And somehow they still find this happiness amongst each other, this mission that they have, and then there is even a queer romance between a sapphic romance between the two of the characters. So it's just this sweet, inclusive, modern feeling retelling of this story that we've always known and personally I've always loved. So I did really enjoy this. And then actually, because they kept mentioning the land between two rivers, which, Mesopotamia, I then for my Historathon read The Land Between Rivers as well as Babylon, which kind of gave me a lot more background context to this. I can't wait until the next couple of quarters. I think it's quarter two that I could actually start reading more in depth with the Crusades, but I wanted to get this out of the way first. I'm very sorry, I had something stuck in my throat. So then I completely took a different path, and I read this young adult comic. It's really adorable, really sweet. It's called The Marshmallow and Jordan, and it features a main character who is in a wheelchair. She used to be a star basketball player, so she still has all her friends on the team, but she can't compete in there anymore. She doesn't really belong, and she's kind of wondering where her place will be when she comes across this random, basically white albino elephant. And he becomes like her friend, her confidant, kind of almost the mascot for the basketball team. And then she starts to kind of have a growth arc where she gets to realize that maybe her basketball career is over, but that does not mean her athletic career is over. And she had always been a really good swimmer, so she starts playing water polo instead. And kind of branches out in her friend group. It's really cute, very positive, with a magical realism type of twist, because it also kind of features Hindu beliefs and the religion, and kind of makes you aware of that, which the end ended up being a really cute twist to how that all went down. But just be aware, I really enjoyed it. I liked the inclusiveness of it, but it is not written in our own voices. The one who wrote it She did all her research and tried to best take a very realistic and, or not realistic, but I guess reverent and approachable way of trying to tell a story of a girl who has a disability, even though the writer herself does not. So just know that it is not in own voices. I didn't know that going in, but I don't think it took away from the story, because we still do need to see inclusivity in our literature, especially for young people. So I still feel like this was a very relevant story, and very just cute story. And it's Alina Chow is the one who made that one. And then I'm just gonna kind of go, because some of them kind of lead into others. But then for manga, I started Tokyo Ghoul, which I did the 3 volumes for this. And I have enjoyed it. I'm going to continue with this story. And it's got some really great themes that I'm always following along with. But the main character basically lives in a world where there's ghouls who are being hunted down by ghoul investigators because they feed off of humans. And so they're, there's lots of bad stereotypes of them. There's killings, and they're monsters, and humans hate them. The main character gets hunted down by a ghoul, and then he essentially wakes up in the hospital having survived an attack. And in order to save him, they had to put in parts of somebody else who had just recently died, not knowing that that person was a ghoul. So now he's kind of gotten some ghoul parts in him, so he's not fully human anymore, and he's trying to decide what it means, therefore, to be human, and starting to see that maybe the way that we view ghouls is maybe they're not fully the monsters, that some of the humans are monstrous, and some of the ghouls are worth saving. And so he tries to understand the politics of the 2 different types of existence, tries to find his way of belonging in and within that system. And the 3rd one did end with a great cliffhanger, which is why I do want to continue, is where he realizes that he's the only one who understands both sides, so he's the one who's going to have to somehow bridge that gap and make both sides maybe understand each other. And so I am interested to see how that is going to go about. So there is some gore and stuff in here, because, there's the monsters eating and then the people trying to kill them. So there is gore in here. But there's also really human interactions, and grief is handled interestingly, and just that sense of loneliness and not belonging was really really prevalent in these first 3, and I really enjoyed that character depth and that character arc. So the next one is The Bicycle, and this is a true story children's book, How an Act of Kindness Changed a Young Refugee's Life. So this is a story written by Patricia McCormick and Mevin Babakar. And so it's Mevin's story, and she is a refugee from the Kurdistan area, and forcefully had to move with her family. And as they're going from country to country, they're not always treated well. The journey itself is perilous. They get to the different countries, and they're not they don't belong there. They're not accepted there until they get to the Netherlands, and she sees a bunch of people riding bikes, and she just wishes that she could be just like any other regular kid, and have a life instead of always living in fear, always being mistreated. And the landlord there gave her a bike because he did want her to feel like she belonged. And that was the one moment of kindness that she received on this whole journey. And she never forgot about him. She actually went back years later to try to find him and thank him for that moment of kindness. And I just feel like this is a very timely, important story that is not just for children. Something that we should all be aware of today. And I did enjoy it. And then, completely switching gears, I listened to the erotic stories for Punjabi widows by Bali Kaur Jaswal, and she's a Singaporean author, and this takes place in India, and they're the Punjabi people, but they're Sikh, and you kind of get a little bit of their religion, but more so you get how society treats widows, not just their society in general, but society as a whole, seeing women over a certain age of no longer mattering, no longer have a life that is relevant or that we should care about. So that is like the depth of this story. There's so much to explore, and it's so beautifully told. But it's told in a almost, there's a comedic aspect, and then there's actually a mystery that unfolds. So this book was very good, and it had so much unexpected just of interest to me. So the stories were, she was trying to teach, and I actually think they, now that I'm remembering it, I don't think that they were actually in India. I think they're immigrants in England. Now I'm kind of forgetting. This is why I should take notes, especially when I read so many. But she's trying to teach them English, and not even just English, but just trying to teach them to write, even if they have to write in their Punjabi language, because a lot of these women, they were basically arranged marriages, and so some of them are grieving their husbands because they actually love them. Some of them finally have freedom for the first time because they were never in love. Some of them were very young, and when they got married to a very older man, and now they're still quite young, but since they're a widow, they're still looked at below others in society. So you have this whole strange and eclectic group of women being taught by a woman in her 20s who's jobless and single, and trying to find something to do. So she wants to teach them, and she thinks she's teaching them creative writing. When she gets them, she finds out that very few of them even know how to read or write anyway. So that kind of goes out the door, except for the fact that they're like, well, why can't we just tell you our stories and dictate them and have you write them? We don't need to, be able to write. And so they wanted their voices to be heard. They wanted to feel like they mattered again. But when they started telling their stories, they were these erotic stories to show that they're still women, they're still alive, they still have desires and feelings and emotions that people just dismiss because of their age, or because if they're not married, then they should no longer have these desires anymore. And so you had all that going on. And so you had a society where people were trying to still control what women had access to. You had young men who didn't like the progressiveness going around, and they kind of were scaring them straight. So you have a lot of internal politics, the religious aspect, and then you have this mystery because one of the women at the place where they're doing their lessons, she is very kind of by the book and cut off, and the one who's trying to learn is or teach them is trying to learn about why she's like that, and finds out that she has her daughter died, and it was ruled a suicide, but the one who's kind of looking into it starts to question whether or not that's true, but it's dangerous to look further because they're already being censored with where they're meeting, how they're meeting, what they're talking about in their meeting. And so it leads to a bit of danger and a really interesting revelation for the rest of the characters in the story. And I just went in wanting something fun, and I was not expecting to have it be so deeply meaningful. And I am definitely going to be reading more. I already had a couple other ones from her, this author, on my TBR, so I will be reading them. But this one was far better than I was expecting. And then I had to read Wayward for a book club, and that's by Amelia Hart. And I was expecting more from this one. I thought it would be, about witches and all the mythical stuff and mysticism, and it wasn't so much about that. It was more about these three different timelines of women's lives. One is being tried for witchcraft and was found like she has to go, on trial because she's found it having murdered somebody with her witchcraft. And then a couple generations later, when we're getting into World War II and stuff, you have another woman who's just really wants to learn, and as a woman, she's not allowed to have access to the knowledge and stuff that she wants. She's not allowed to make her own decisions for her life. And then you have somebody who now is trying to escape a domestic violence marriage. And each of the women have a storyline that deals with bodily autonomy, their whether it's a pregnancy, whether it's a marriage or anything like that, and how each generation has to try to take their lives back into their own hands. There was a movie probably like in the 90s or maybe earlier. I don't even remember if I watched it, but I had always heard about it. I used to work at a video store, so I was aware of a lot of the movies. And there was this movie called If These Walls Could Talk, and it was about women through different generations of this same house who never knew each other. It was like one person lived there and then moved out, and then generations later a different one moved there, but they all dealt with abortion. And it's almost like if we could understand the lives and struggles of our ancestors, would we be empowered by that, or would we make the same mistakes as them? And so you kind of see these parallel lives playing out that you just wish that they could have learned from the generation before. And that's very much what this felt like to me. And that aspect I enjoyed. I just didn't always like the execution and having it be about women suspected of witchcraft. I guess that's the whole idea, is they were just women that were being burned at the stake, that were being drowned, that were being executed as witches. And it didn't really have to be about witchcraft. And so maybe that's what the author was trying to tell here. But when you're reading the summary for this and you think it's about witches and witchcraft, I guess I just expected it to be more about witches and witchcraft. So my expectations were a little off on that, and maybe that's just why I didn't enjoy it as much. And then I had a couple of really great stories and rabbit holes that I went down. I listened to The Lilac People by Milo Todd, and that was a 5-star read for me. And it was about trans and basically LGBT people in the concentration camps in Germany during World War II, and how when the camps were liberated by the Allies released, all the prisoners and stuff, except for the LGBT people. They were not let go from these concentration camps. They were, in fact, arrested and re-imprisoned because, during that time period, Britain, and then, the McCarthyism and Lavender Scare in the U.S. in the 50s and stuff, all were showing that the view on homosexuality and transgender people was very much in line to Hitler's extermination of them. So they didn't get saved the way that a lot of the other populations that were in these concentration camps got liberated when the Allies came through. Instead, you had these groups of people who had to either escape and flee and then hide. And so this follows, and this is a novel, but it's obviously based on actual events and stuff, that historical fiction story where this couple, and one of them is transgender man, have escaped and have been living as an old couple, trying to hide now from the Allies after escaping from the Nazis. And they one day find another young transgender man about dead at the door, and they have to decide if their safety and their freedom is worth risking to try to save this stranger. And they do. They choose to save him, but it is at great risk to themselves. And so when they start getting the possibility of getting caught again, they now have to try to leave for the United States. It's this great story for history, this time period that people don't talk about, this population that keeps getting overlooked and discriminated against. And then this found family that they created amongst themselves to try to survive and to carve out a little place of acceptance and belonging and happiness and love together. And you have this hopefulness as they're trying to escape to the United States, except for, the knowledge that they're going to have to hide there too, because they're only years away from the Lavender Scare and McCarthyism sweeping the nation again. So it's tense, it's hard. There's aspects that I hadn't realized before, but as soon as it talked about it, it completely made sense, and I don't know why I never thought of it before. But how the concentration camps had brothels, and how the women prisoners, especially if they were LGBT people, where they were trying to essentially make them straight, or force them to be an identity that they were not. And so I never really thought about that aspect and how much more horrific it is, um, being able to survive that and then still have to hide who you are from your liberators because they still see you as subhuman. So it's a very, very important story and very, very well told. I would highly recommend it. But it is also has really hard themes. So I followed that with Affections by Rodrigo Hasbun, because when they were on their trip on the way to the United States, in the Lilac People, they were on board with a whole bunch of Nazis who got invited to the United States because, I'm sorry for my cats again, they're being obnoxious, but because they were, whether they were good scientists or whether they had something that America wanted, uh, they were inviting all these Nazis here freely, to work and here. The rest of the population had to hide who they are, and the Nazis got to live freely as themselves, as guests in America, which is horrifying, but it happened. So anyway, I followed that kind of rabbit hole into Affections, which is a story from a Bolivian author, where a bunch of the Nazis then also fled to South America. And this follows a true family, but it's a fictionalized account of what probably happened within this family, or like, some of the things that happened with this family, but how do we get here type of thing. And so the father was a filmmaker for a Nazi propagandist, a very popular one. And so they came to try to escape Germany once the Allies were starting to come in, and tried to rebuild their lives in Bolivia. The father was this adventurer who always liked to go explore different countries and leave his family at home and waiting if is he going to survive this or is he not? Is he going to come home to us? And one time he takes his two daughters with him on this expedition, and then you kind of follow what happens after and how the family becomes fractured. So he had an affair. The mom died. The one daughter got married young and moved back to Europe, and the other one actually becomes involved with the communist movement in South America with Che Guerrero and a bunch of the Cuban communists, and she becomes this essentially wanted person who's killing people, and she travels back and forth. And when she's in Europe, she is killing people, is a spy hunting down people, and it's just kind of a fascinating look. It's very a short story, so I'm not sure how I really liked the writing style. It did switch from points of view, but it felt fractured in a way because some of them were like modern times, some of them were talking about their past, and you never really know much about the one who I was most interested in, which was this freedom fighter, wanted individual. I would have liked to hear a lot more of her story, and then it ends with you just don't really know what happened to her. Her family never sees her again. There's a lot of disgrace that she brought the family, because there was other Germans in Bolivia at that time, and they thought that she was making them all look bad. And the Bolivians didn't. Not all of them were communist freedom fighters, so they didn't really understand her fight for them either. So there was some interesting stuff and then some stuff that kind of was, just okay, or bordered on boring. But overall, I found it a very interesting story, which then led me to more freedom fighters. I started with Black Coal and Red Bandanas, which is about the mine wars in West Virginia, where they were trying to fight for basically unionized rights, proper pay, less work, better conditions. They had to be living on these company towns where they just worked harder and harder, and went more and more in debt, because the part of their paycheck went to paying for the place that they were supposed to be living in, but then they jacked up the prices in the company stores. So they basically were working for themselves to death, and never would get ahead. And what was interesting in here is I always talk about how I'm intrigued when Irish people just randomly show up in stories that I'm reading. And once again, Mother Jones, well-known person here in the United States, that I always grew up hearing her name, but I really never understood exactly what she was doing, or the importance of her. But she came from Ireland, and she actually was a huge workers' rights fighter, and she went to these mine towns and tried to get them all together to not be scared to join the union, to kind of fight the union to get themselves better rights and stuff. And it also talks in here about how it wasn't just the white workers. You also had workers of color, a lot of black workers, and other workers of color who not only were all the mine workers mistreated, but then you had this hierarchy, and the people of color were even badly treated by their own fellow miners. So you had a whole lot going on in here. But I just kind of want to go on a side tangent really quickly, because of my fascination with the fact that because Ireland was always oppressed, they always show up in stories where they're fighting oppression, even if it wasn't their own. She came from Ireland. She didn't have a family who was mining or anything. She just wanted to help, and she knew how to do it, and she wasn't scared of people, and she, went and got things done. And it just amuses me how they show up everywhere. And as a further side note, as I'm doing more and more research for like what books and stuff I want to read, I also found out that the Polish people have randomly showed up in different places that I'm now fascinated with. So you have a lot of Polish, Haitian Poles, because Napoleon sent Polish people down to fight and try to stomp the Haitian rebellion. And when they got there, they were like, why are we fighting for Napoleon? We don't even like the guy. He was supposed to be promising them independence as a nation, and he failed. So they swapped sides and were fighting with the slaves against Napoleon, and then a bunch of them stayed down there. So you have this community of Haitian Poles. And then in the World War II, when Hitler and then Stalin came and basically both attacked Poland and divided the country, the Soviets were shipping out a lot of the Polish people to work camps, or basically to their deaths. And a bunch of children were orphaned and had to be, where are they going to send them? They just kept sending them. Nobody wanted them. Nobody wanted to help. And one of the Maharajas in India actually took in about 1,000 children against British colonial mandate. They didn't want him to help, and he said, well, you can't stop me, because he used his own money and he built basically a school camp on his own land and saved a bunch of these children. And I, it just, it amazes me when, not only, how small the world actually is, but all the different ways, that humanity shines through, even in the worst, times. But then all the different ways that we're interconnected in ways that we didn't realize. And I love history, and I love the world, um, learning about the world and different things. So that's my tangent. But my rabbit hole, after I did the whole Polish and everything, and watched a documentary about the, Maharaja, the good Maharaja, according to the Poles. Uh, um, I also then read, the Turkish Kaleidoscope, which is about the Turkish resistance, rebellion, revolution, in the 70s. And there's these two factions, the fascists, the nationalists, I guess, and then the communists. And they both wanted different, for the independence of their country. They both saw it going about differently and wanted different things. And instead of, um, unifying and fighting, to get what they wanted, they fought each other. And so you had a bunch of college students, essentially, killing each other. And so there's a lot of violence in here, but you get this, understanding of the ideology of both sides, as you're following, two people, from both sides. But what I thought the most fascinating is at the end, the next generations, when, um, rebellion is happening and revolution is happening, and you have the, police brutality, and you have the government coming down on the, protesters. The younger people are like, they can't do that. That's wrong. The people have the right to protest. And the older generation who lived through, these protests said, well, of course the state, of course the government, of course the police have to step in, because it gets violent otherwise. And you see how, the intergenerational, trauma, gets brought down, and then they think that they're wrong for protesting, and that you should not stand up and fight for or against, an oppression. And so then they become silent, and that's just a very scary thought. And I thought it was really, well handled in this, story. And this was by Jenny White and Ergun, Gunduz. I'm not really sure how, if I pronounced that correctly. So the rebellion and, stuff took me down, back all the way to, the Nazis again. And then I read The Librarian of Burned Books by Brianna Labuskis. And that is a story of, once again, three different women. One in, Berlin, and, as Hitler's taken power, like when he's announced chancellor and stuff, and then in Paris in like 39, I think, and then, in the United States in, the early 40s. And you follow these different women. One was a writer who was from the United States, who was invited by the Nazis to come, and see, that they weren't so bad. Like, they were basically trying to, get her to, have propaganda for them, try to make them look better than they were to the United States and to the Allies. And she falls for it. But she also becomes friends with people who hate the regime, who hate Hitler. And she eventually starts realizing, like, I might have been wrong. How was I so wrong? And like living with that idea that, not all Nazis, or, you know, like, we just like the book that I read by John Steinbeck last year, the Moon is Down, where it humanizes the Nazis. They're not these horrible monsters always. So they're it's easy to uh, mistake them for the monsters they are when you see at times a human side to them, which honestly makes it even more jarring and even more terrifying. The idea that just everyday humans can be that horrible to each other, but we see it every day. And so just kind of explores that. Whereas you have one of the other women is Jewish, and she has to flee. First, she flees Germany to Paris, and both of those women were there for the huge book burning. And they talk about how it was students who did it and gleefully burned their books, and how anything that was considered anti-German could have been killed. So it was, I mean, could have been burned. So like anything, it was so uh, subtle and vast. The description could have meant anything, and so they just would burn everything. And how devastating, as one was a reader and one was a writer, as devastating as was to see that shift in people who were educated, who were willing to give up that knowledge and the seeking for more knowledge so willfully by destroying their books and just following somebody else's command, and no longer thinking for themselves. It changed both of those women. And so one of them was trying to rescue the books that were often burned. And so she had a library that she was setting up in Paris until the Nazis then came to Paris, and she had to flee once again. So those are two ongoing storylines. And then you also have this storyline in the United States where this woman was trying to fight a congressman who wanted to stop and censor the books being shipped off to the Allied soldiers to read on the front lines. And her argument was, well, if they're old enough to die for us, why are they not old enough to decide what they want to read? The reading gives them hope. The reading gives them a sense of belonging, as something to look forward to. It's something necessary. It's not this just frivolous thing that they don't need anymore. And this other guy was basically saying, yeah, but then they'll think for themselves. We don't want them to be anti-American. We want to make sure that they're only reading what we want them to read. And so how the two countries were mirroring each other in how they wanted to handle free thought and knowledge, and the power that knowledge gives you, and how they weren't all that different from each other. And pretty soon the stories interconnect, and it's so beautifully written, so thought-provoking, and very surprisingly, the one story, the one in that of the two women, and that took place in Europe, was a sapphic romance that was so beautiful and tragic and compelling, that I wasn't expecting it to go there, and I thought it handled that very beautifully. But this was another 5-star read for me. I just finished it, and I will be thinking about this and Lilac People for quite a long time. I actually had 3 5-star reads this month, which was incredible. I had a really good month of reading because in my earlier video I mentioned that I read and loved The Color Purple. So I have been very lucky so far this year. I guess I do enjoy the fact that I just follow these whims and rabbit holes that I go down. But anyway, to kind of ease away from all that hardness, I read Do's and Donuts of Love by Adiba Jagadar. She's a Bangladeshi author, and this is also a sapphic YA romance where they're on a reality baking show, but it's just fun and sweet. It's predictable because it is a genuine romance, but the main character is Bangladeshi, but she's also plus size. So she, you talk a lot about acceptance and food positivity, especially in a culture that everything is celebrating food. Family gatherings, the way that you greet your guests and stuff by serving them. It's all very food minded, but then you can't be a certain size or you can't be overweight because then you're, shameful. And so, like, how hard that is to straddle that line, I thought that was a really a unique perspective and something that doesn't get discussed a lot. So I did enjoy it. And then just two more. I read, and I had planned to wait and read it for the fantasy, but I ran, I had time. So I read it and then I ended up finishing it really quickly. The Fall That Saved Us by Tamara Juri. So I had been, I had like 5 episodes left, but I've been rewatching the TV show Lucifer. Angels and demons and all that mythology and fun world building and stuff. And this seemed right up my alley because it's right in line with all of that. And I really enjoyed it. It is sapphic. It is, there is spice to it, but it serves a purpose because it shows the rigidity of religion in aspects. So you have a angel, half angel or whatever, Nephilim. I can never pronounce the name, and then a demon. This brand of demon is a succubus, and the angel touched people are demon hunters. Except for the fact that this demon is keeps showing up and is not attacking her. She is thousands of years old or whatever. She was originally to the fall, and there's just been this ongoing vendetta of people for like angels hate demons, demons hate angels, but they never really learned the other side. Why for the fall? Why are we doing this? Why, they are just told the same thing. There's so much hidden from them. There's so much tradition wrapped around their reasons that this bigotry and this shame-inducing type of religion, like fanaticism, just makes them too scared to question themselves, too scared to fall because they were told all these horror stories. But they're both sides are finding out that the trouble is, or the truth is somewhere in between, and that they were both lied to, and they just have this sense in each other that there's someone who finally understands them because they don't fully buy into all the stuff that their sides have to offer. And I believe I was really interested in the way that they handled this sort of rigidity and fanaticism, and how even for the angels, like any sense of like happiness or pleasure or indulgence was sinful and shameful, and they had to like self-mutilate and repent, and it was just like it felt cultish, especially since I had read a book last year about being in cults. It felt very like trying to escape a cult, and so I actually enjoyed the world building there. Personally, I liked that one. And then last, Mona's Eyes by Thomas Schlesler. And so this is a young girl who finds out she might be going blind, and her grandpa wants to help her by not letting her take for granted anything in her life, that she already has. So every week when she's supposed to be going to therapy to try to deal with the possibility of her going blind, instead he takes her to a museum, and they look at one painting every week, and just study it and talk about it. And it's written by a art historian. So there's so much rich detail, as he literally, each chapter is about a different artist. And so you learn about, the life of Michelangelo, Leonardo, Vermeer. They go even up to Jackson Pollock. You got Van Gogh, Monet, like everyone you can think of. He gives her, he has her look at a picture, talks about the picture, study it, talk about the context of the picture, and he picks each artist based on what they're bringing new to the art form. Whether it's the first person who used the camera obscura to try to make more realistic panoramic views of the vista paintings, or if it's somebody who's using black in their paintings for the first time. So he's teaching her about the progression of art. He's teaching her about each artist and their lives. Very interesting facts and stuff that I found. But also within that, the history of the context of that author or of that artist at the time. So, what's going on in the world of Michelangelo, what's going on in the world of Vermeer. And you get to learn all these different fascinating facts about the artist, about art, and about the history of the time, which personally are some of my favorite topics and things to discuss. I went on and on about the Renaissance in a previous video and how much I love art. So I'm really looking forward to Historathon when we also get to the Renaissance time. But in the meantime, this just was my perfect blend of what I personally enjoyed, and I have loved every minute of it. And to quickly wrap it up, I just want to say I did start a couple of books that I haven't finished, and then I'll talk about briefly, because I know it's going so long, my ideas for what I'm going to try to read in February. But I've also started Sign of Affection. It's another manga. The art in here is so crisp and just well done and beautiful. And so this features a deaf main character, and the boy that she has a crush on speaks 3 different languages, but sign language is not one of them. And so they have to figure out how to communicate with each other. And the fact that she's like drawing hands, as somebody who tries to draw myself, hands are some of the hardest thing for me to draw. And the fact that she does it so that she can do the sign language and stuff, I just find utterly fascinating. And she incorporates the sign language within the story very well, because she wants to show what it is like to be deaf in this world. So I just really enjoy the art here, and the story has been cute so far. This is omnibus, so it's volumes 1, 2, and 3, and I do have 3, 4, 5, and 6 as well, So I'll read this in February. This can be like my Valentine thing. I also want to read a horror, just because it's me and I want to. It is history, or not history, it is Black History Month. So I do intend to read, finally, The Arc of the Universe by Nikki Alexander. She is a Black woman who is supposed to be drafting the Constitution for the new colony for Mars. And she's planning on basing it on the U.S. Constitution. She has learned it. She's really great at law and constitutional law. But then she gets in a police brutality incident and has to come to terms with racism and the systemic racism that's inherent in the U.S. Constitution, and how she does not want to bring that forward into a new world, on a new planet. So she's going to have to try to come to terms with what that all means. And I'm really excited to read this. And I also plan to listen to the Roberto Clemente biography. I am a huge sports fan, and always as a kid, my favorite old athletes, baseball players, were always Roberto Clemente and Lou Gehrig, and so I'm really excited to read Roberto Clemente's biography, and I also want to read the autobiography of Assata. And that's been on my list for a while, and I'm finally going to make room to it for it to listen to this month. This month is also, I'm going to be wanting to kind of cut short my planned TBR, because I know that I'm going to be watching a lot of the Olympics, and I like to allow myself to go down these rabbit holes, because that's where I found some of my best reading, is just random. And so I want to be able to do that with the Olympics, whether it's a country, whether it's a sport or something, and I wanted to research or read more about it. I want to do that. But I also want to read Invisible Cities, which is by Italo Calvino. So he's an Italian writer that I really enjoy. I have not read this one yet. I really enjoyed his If on Winter's Night a Traveler, one of the most unique books I've ever read. He has this like absurdist quality to his writing, but it is amusing, it is completely out there and fun, and I'm looking forward to reading more from him. And since the Olympics are in Italy, I do want to make sure that I'm reading an Italian author for this month. It's also Fantasy February, so I've already started the Phoenix Keeper. This is by S.A. McLean, and I really have enjoyed it so far. It's a zoo of mystical creatures, but it deals with conservation, and they have poaching and stuff. So it deals with really real, timely, and important topics within the fantasy genre. It is a sapphic story as well. And just the first 3 chapters that I read so far, the writing is also really beautiful. This is a debut book, but she has like a very flowery, beautiful prose that I usually don't enjoy, but I really like how she's incorporating it here, not just with describing the different crazy animals that we're meeting that are completely new to me, but just the way that she's describing, everyday life, and what the characters are wearing, or how they're moving around in this very fantastical world. So I am looking forward to reading more of that. And then I had mentioned this in a recent book haul, but Batu and the Search for the Golden Cup is the other fantasy that I want to make sure that I read this month. That is about Kazakhstan, and history and mythology by a Kazakhstani author. I don't want to commit myself to any more than those specifically. I do have a couple audiobooks on hold that should be coming due in the library that I'll be reading. And I'm going to put a pause on Pontius Pilate and start Silk Road instead. I just feel like talking about intercultural, I guess, history is going to fit really well with my Olympic viewing and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm very sorry for all my tangents, how long this video is, but I hope that you found at least some of it enjoyable, maybe something to read, and I do look forward to hearing what you read in the month of January, as well as some of your plans for February, and I will see you shortly. Thank you, and as always, happy reading.